Uplink established. Welcome, Brigador.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to what is possibly my favorite game of all time. It's definitely the only game I've scrounged the patience to 100%. This is a game for the tanker and mech warrior alike. So let's go ahead and consult the Travis pie chart to see how interested I am. Oh, hey, would you look at that? Serendipitous. This is a hidden gem, buried in the pile of crap that has become the Steam store. This is a ruby, stained red by the blood of the innocent. This is the war crime simulator that is Brigador. Brigador masquerades as a top-down shooter, however it feels like anything but. The most jarring cue that this isn't Renegade Ops is the tank controls, which probably brings up bad memories of a Jill sandwich.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich. Jill sandwich.
It is, admittedly, a serious pain in the ass, especially for the first few hours, but once you get used to it, the tank controls begin to make a lot of sense. Not just because you're piloting a real armored fighting vehicle, but because your orientation matters. Like a real AFV, your sides and rear take significantly more damage in the front of the vehicle. You see, this isn't a game about zipping between enemy bullets, firing with wild abandon. This is a game about creeping down a neon-lit hellscape, pumping 105mm HE shells right up these poor bastards' bunghole from the safety of a smokescreen. This is a game about committing war crimes for... Oh hey, would you look at that? I got $50. One of my favorite ways to play this game is to take a real-life vehicle and try to recreate it in Brigador, which is surprisingly easy because half the weapons are straight from the real world. We've got infantry mortars, we've got the Bofors 40mm, we have a World War I siege mortar. It's a military historian's paradise covered in a beautiful 1980s patina. So what better vehicle to start with than the Rounder, or as I like to call it, the Space Abrams. We've got the Abbott, which is basically an M68 or an L7 if you're of the tea drinking persuasion, and the Madois, designed by the prophet of firearms himself, the keeper of the Holy 50, John Moses Browning. It's basically an M1 Abrams, but with space junk grafted to it. Which brings me to the next contender, the Space Sherman. It doesn't quite look like a Sherman, but hey, it does have the armament of a Sherman, which is close enough for me. It performs about as well as you would expect a Sherman to perform. If you get caught out in the open, you can kiss your ass goodbye, but if you get behind somebody, you can really just tear them to shreds. It's a great little tank by any metric. Now for my next trick, you take this little guy, which is based off of the fuselage of an attack helicopter, you put that 20mm belter in there, and the Pitbull 57mm rocket pod. The eagle-eyed among you will recognize that as the Russian S-5 rockets, so what we have here is a Space Hind. Now I am cheating a bit. There's no Russian 23mm gun here, but the belter is basically an M197 that's close enough for government work. I guess that kind of makes this a Cobra Hind, but that's not half as catchy. This thing destroys. If it even looks at you funny, you get a barrage of high explosive shells and rockets that'll make you wish for the spanking spoon. Its armor does have the consistency of paper, so keep that in mind. The next vehicle is a product of the Corvid faction, who operate like weaponized junkyard war, so it's only fitting that the faction known for breathing new life into old husks has my favorite historical loadout. For whatever reason, the junkyards on the planet of Novo Sobre are just chock full of old ME-109 fuselages. Now tell me, what's a boy to do with an old Messerschmitt? Why, the obvious, of course. You chop the wings off, weld anti-gravity nonsense to it, and send it off into battle. Why, I can't think of a better fighting platform besides, I don't know, every tank ever made. Absurdity aside, this swordfish is so much fun. Its strafing is painfully slow, but it's got one of the highest straight line speeds in the game, meaning combat plays very much like a dogfight. That, along with some hefty firepower for such a fast vehicle, allows you to get the drop on heavier enemies and still have the speed to escape their escorts. But I have yet to reveal the righteous way to play the Swordfish, for the true path is hidden. First, you have to make sure the horn is bound to something easily accessible, as if it were one of your main guns. You pop open the dev console, change the main gun to the first auxiliary, which is the belter. Then you change the secondary and your horn to the first small machine gun, which fires 8mm Mauser. You see what I did there? Yeah? You see what I did there? Oh, what's that? Oh, you don't spend every waking moment watching military history visualized? It's the original armament of the ME-109 F series. I know, I just blew your minds. Okay, so maybe it's not as exciting to you as it is to me, but I just love the idea of the Corvettes taking a stock ME-109, mint condition of course, just chopping the wings off and sending it straight in. It's like putting a Picatinny rail on a Thompson. I love to hate it. And with the Swordfish, there is far more love than hate. Another way to play this game is with a series of vehicles I call the Dynasty. First in the lineup is Knight. It's two of those belters strapped to some legs, and this little guy is pretty great at getting the lead out. It has decent shields too, so if you play it right, you can dish it out and take it too. Solid vehicle. Next we have Lord. This stompy boy uses two 14mm caseless Banshees, which is our first futuristic firearm. Woo! One of the real-life advantages of a caseless firearm is you don't have to eject a cartridge. The entire round is either burned or expelled out of the barrel, meaning the damn thing will fire as fast as your little heart desires. The futuristic bit is the fact that these caseless munitions don't spontaneously explode, so, that's handy. Oh, quiet down, you hear that? Oh, hell, be quiet for a second. Hear ye. All make way for the presence of Her Majesty, the Queen of Lead, the Arbiter of Destruction, the Bringer of the Eternal Muzzle Flash, Empress. This little gal packs twin Koenigs, or in the real world, they're known as GAU-8s, the gun the A-10 was slapped on top of. All this strapped to an armored moving junkyard. Holy crap, she shreds, but you do have to be a little careful. The Koenigs are thirsty. Now, you may be asking yourself, what could possibly follow up that thick beauty? You've already shown me the absolute pinnacle of military nonsense. Two of the most ridiculous weapons ever designed strapped to an armored monstrosity. How could this possibly get any better? Well, the answer is a motorized rickshaw with two MG42 machine guns. Tell me, have you ever wanted to roleplay as someone who's huffed one too many cans of paint? Or perhaps an insurgent who drunkenly designs technicals in their spare time? Well, grab yourself a varlet and get to work, you wild son of a bitch. This is Baby, and is certainly some of the most fun to be had in Brigador. It basically turns this game into a bullet hell shooter, so sometimes I'll change the controls so it plays a little more like a traditional twin stick. Normally I'd say that's an awful idea due to the whole directional armor thing, but the varlet provides as much resistance as a force field when the power is out, so no need to worry about that at all, really. Now this little guy is a blast, and the most difficult outfit in the game. But the best way to play the varlet is with two cut-down recoilless rifles, which shoot about as far as I can throw grenades in VR. You also want to make sure to equip the audio kinetic pulse, which is quite literally weaponized sound. I call this little guy a suicide bomber because this tends to happen. Alright, we're kind of missing out on futuristic weapons in this futuristic game, so it's time to put on a proper light show. That's right, kids, lasers and railguns. Directed energy weapons are some of the coolest weapons in modern arsenals. Lasers are actually being deployed, albeit as defensive weapons. It won't be long before we see Humvee-mounted lasers defending forward operating bases right beside stuff like C-RAM. But I'm not here to nerd out about near-future tech. I'm here to level apartment blocks, so let's get to it. The lasers in Brigador are excellent. Both believable as weapons for the most part, and quite effective in gameplay. One of the best loadout is the twin turret lasers. The disco is for shields and the bully is for holes. When these two brothers are fired simultaneously, there isn't much the enemy can do except die violently. Now the railgun, that is a beautiful weapon. When you slap it on this little guy with some active camo, oh my lord, you start to see its true potential. The railgun is so deadly it's disgusting. It's a stonking big gun with quick little legs to boot. The Buckmaster is a favorite. But let's move on to the big boys. The Broodmare with the Otomo and Thunderclap is basically easy mode. Once you focus the Otomo, it turns into the Eye of Zeus. And the Thunderclap isn't a favorite, but it's a damn fine weapon. These two couple each other perfectly. The Thunderclap reaches out to give them a little love tap on the shoulder, and the other delivers an uppercut that would make Mike Tyson wince. Not only that, but it has armor up the wazoo and great shields to boot. So if you're looking for a good time, call 1-800-879-6877 or 1-800-UP-YOURS to have the Broodmare shoot electrons up your ass. I can't help but feel I'm not maximizing the number of war crimes I can commit in an hour, so let's solve that proper. For those of you not familiar with the Geneva Convention, one thing it does outlaw is chemical weapons, so let me introduce you to the Habermobile. This piece of work will turn your hole into slag, liquefy you while you're still conscious, and then atomize your friends with sound. With 2 chemical projectors, this evil bastard lands solidly in the illegal category. Look at these, it's so gross. I mean, just look at it. Melting buildings to slag. Could you imagine how terrifying this would be in real life? As scary as that is, the Sleepwalker is significantly more sinister. The Black Hand is nothing more than a silent gamma ray emitter. Instead of a massive hulking death dealer you can see coming, the Sleepwalker silently microwaves the crew from the inside out. It's so disgusting, it's a literal cancer gun. Now, these don't exist in real life, so I'm not sure it's technically outlawed by the Geneva Convention, but for some reason I feel it's fair to assume that a literal cancer gun is a war crime. Now, we've been having fun, but I've got to level with you. My heart will always lie somewhere else. You see, in my day-to-day life, I've come to adore the simple things, like being able to throw absolutely whatever I damn well please out the end of a firearm. I love shotguns. Even though they're mainly a civilian thing, shotguns are so versatile, they have found usage in every modern military. Not as a weapon, but as a room-breaching tool. But also as a weapon. Nothing clears a room quite like buckshot. Thankfully, the shotguns in this game shred like Joe Walsh. Armed with the 88 and the Parliament, the Praetor is a force to be reckoned with. It's basically the King Tiger's main gun firing explosive cluster munitions, and a 76 firing canister shells, which pretty much feels like a bog standard shotgun. And that's not a criticism. Shotguns are really hard to get right. A lot of games think close range means off the tip of your nose, not 50 to 100 yards. Call of Duty. Plus, even at those ranges, you still have to aim a shotgun. What a shotgun does is spread the area of impact, delivering a punch more than a traditional stab. So it's absolutely great at destroying unarmored targets. But the Kraken, oh. This 90mm tungsten-throwing madman can't do a damn thing against shields, but when it's paired with something shield draining like the lockdown machine gun, oh, kiss your ass goodbye. Holy crap, this bad boy feels like a heavy weapon. Even the stoutest of vehicles cannot withstand the broadside. Not only that, but it can go through multiple buildings and still decimate its target. I love the Kraken, but it has to be used carefully. It's just flaccid against shields. Man, all this death, all this destruction, just warms the cockles of my heart. Brigador is a wonderland for lovers of military hardware and futurists alike. Not only are half of its weapons real-life weapons imagined in a futuristic scenario, its space weapons are fairly believable to a certain extent. It's just one of the many reasons I love Brigador and thought it interesting enough to put out on the internet. So, thank you for sticking with me, and remember kids, some can't pierce shields and some give armor a pass, but the 140mm doesn't give a rat's ass.